Few things are for sure in this life, but this is. If we live for any substantial amount of time, we will encounter grief due to the loss of a loved one. Not something any of us ever want, and we all handle it differently. This podcast is to feature those who have done purposeful and meaningful things through their grief. These people featured on here are normal folks, just like you and me, who were thrust into a place they never wanted to be in their lives. A painful place. As they move through their pain, they realize that something worthwhile, something for the greater good could come out of the unthinkable. I'm sure that none of them would ever consider themselves to be a hero, but when I searched the definition of the word hero, I found this: a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And that fit. And so it's my privilege to bring you the remarkable stories of these heroes in grief. Hi, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Heroes in Grief podcast, and the response has been incredible so far, and I want to thank you for that. It's getting out to people, and they're letting us know that it's helping them, and that is what it's all about. I want to make you aware of a way that you can support this podcast without having to spend 1 cent, and that is through affiliate marketing. I've set up affiliate marketing for online shopping. If you do online shopping, then I have links to all the major retailers, most of them anyways, and I can provide them for you so that when you buy online through those links, you'll help support the podcast through the percentages that we get. It doesn't cost you anything more. You just shop like you regularly would on the sites that you love. It's very easy. All you have to do is shop. And that's it. Just let me know the links to the places that you want to shop at, and I will provide the affiliate links so that you can do it. If you want more information on this, you can go to heroesandgrief.com. It takes you to the Linktree page where a video explains it in a little more detail. But you can always email me at tom@heroesandgrief.com, and I can answer questions for you. But you can support the podcast that way, and it's very easy, very simple, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Isn't that great? Thank you. Now here's today's episode. How prompt of you.
I try. I'm a fellow podcaster, so I appreciate it.
You know how it goes, right?
Yep, sure do.
Nice to have you on.
Yeah,
Nice
thanks for having me. I'm glad to be connected. And the Get Griefy group, man, it's awesome. I'm connecting with so many awesome people. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, Tara Accardo, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Excellent. Tara is, she's got tons of stuff for you. She does a podcast herself. She loved the name of her site because it fits right in with the Heroes in Grief thing. Losses become gains.
Yes.
And so we want to learn all about you, Tara. Why don't you tell us your story and what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I'll try and make this a very, very long story short.
We got time. It's all right.
Thank you.
We got to fill enough space, you know?
Yeah, oh, trust me, I could. I'm a talker. So basically what ultimately led me to getting into this grief work, if you will, is the losses of my parents. So basically my mom was diagnosed with esophageal cancer probably around like May or June of 2019. From diagnosis to passing, it was maybe like 8 or 9 months. And, you know, that was devastating. I don't think I'd never even like heard of anticipatory grief prior to that experience, and I don't think I realized I was going through it as I was going through it. I certainly learned what it was after, I'll tell you that. But just my mom was only 62, 63. Like she was not old. I don't consider that old at all. I thought she had decades more with us. It's just, I don't know how to describe this, but like her cancer journey and like what happened to her just didn't fit. Like it didn't make sense. And I hopefully people listening here can kind of empathize with that. I think there's a lot of us that feel that way sometimes versus, not that any other death feels right per se, but compared to, and I hate to compare, but I'll compare for a second, with my dad's passing. My dad also had cancer and died of that 6 months after my mom. So my mom died December 2019. My dad died July 2020. So height of COVID, all the things. But what was interesting about my dad's journey is he had cancer for like 5 or 6 years at that point. And his dad had actually had and died of prostate cancer. So I guess there was that maybe I had more time to process it. Even now, I'm still trying to kind of figure it out, you know what I mean? But there was like that, kind of genetic thing there. There was something about that I was almost able to wrap my head around a little bit more, but with my mom, and my dad was 13 years older than my mom. I think he was like 73, 74 when he died. So, my mom's death, just like it does for so many people, it shattered me. It shattered my entire world. And I couldn't, like, the thought, the idea of living, existing, doing the day-to-day things without her. She was like many people. She's my absolute best friend. Like, we are just so soulfully connected, and I feel that even now, and with my dad as well. But, with my mom being the first to go, that really just broke my entire world. And then with
Mm.
my dad, like I said, 6 months later, I don't have tangible proof of this, but I definitely would say that was from a broken heart in many ways. He had even told me when he was in hospice, and his cancer basically had metastasized, went from the prostate into his back and into his brain, and so he was a little bit in and out there towards the end, mentally. But he was pretty clear in that, I want to go be with mom. I miss mom. Like, I just don't think he knew how to do life without her. And it's not that he wanted to leave me, I know that,
Yeah.
but it just, it was just
I think
hard.
it's totally legit, that stuff, I mean, the energy level, whatever, I
Yep.
mean, it changes obviously, and then he just probably just like, "Okay, enough."
I've fought for long enough, like,
Yeah,
he's kind of just like, not like, what am I living for per se, but like, it's his best friend, right? His wife of over 35 years. Like, that's intense. There's something to be said about
right, she
that.
probably gave him all kinds of motivation to
Oh, yeah.
fight
And
and all those things, yeah.
yeah, and partnership, and not that I didn't, but, I had, frankly, I mean, and I don't say this in like I don't know, to come off in any particular way, but, I had my own life, right? Like, I had my own relationship. I think my dad knew, she's starting her own life. She's doing her own thing. Of course, I was there for him as much as I could be, but, that was devastating. So for me, and I'm an only child, so I have no siblings.
Oh,
It was just a cherry on top of the cake, just in terms of I talk fairly often, about loneliness and the aloneness that grief and loss can cause. And I want to acknowledge that so fiercely, because it is something that so many of us go through. And even if we have a beautiful support system and we have people around us and they're offering support and all the things, like, sometimes it's just not enough, or it's not the people that we've lost. Like, that's all we want, are the people that would have normally supported us in that situation, yet they're the ones that are gone. And it's just, it messes with your mind. And I understand how people can go to some really dark places. I do. And so from there, and I had my 19-year-old dog throughout all of this too. I had her since I was 10. She's like this, I joke,
19, wow.
19. Yeah, she's the sister I never had. She died the year after, so less than a year after that,
Oh,
she died. So then it was really like, okay, this is rock bottom, because anyone here listening who's been through pet loss, how excruciating.
right, especially having them that long and you identify with so many things with them, and I'm sure, you relied on what was your pet's name?
Princess.
Princess. I'm sure you relied on Princess through your hard times with your parents,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
And
1000%. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
then she's gone and it's like, "Oh my god, now what?"
what am I living for? Yeah, what am I doing here? I say that kind of in jest now, but truly, and it's just horrible, and putting it mildly. And what's funny, and this is a podcast for another day, but I also, between my parents' deaths, went through a breakup as well. Ironically, with the man that is now my husband and father of my child. Like I said, podcast for another day. Spoiler alert, we got back together. But, I just want to acknowledge that. And I kind of can joke about it now, but at the time it was not funny. Right. It was
Mm.
yet another very, very painful loss. And there's a lot about that. I think we just didn't know how to be there for each other, like, truly connect in a meaningful way. Communication would neither of us had been through anything like this before. He has quite literally never lost, knock on wood, anyone very, very close to him. Like, he's lost family members, but he doesn't really know them, and it's different than, how can he possibly relate to losing two parents within 6 months? He just can't.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, so that relationship broke down, and so later that year we did get back together, and there was a whole process through that took a lot of, very heartfelt and tough conversations about, what happened, what's it going to look like moving forward, and thankfully it did make us stronger, but it was just another loss, right? That I had to endure throughout all of that. And so from there, once I lost Princess, so, fast forward, whatever it is, basically a year and a half now after all of this loss, I'm like, okay, what now? I continued on with life. I, kept working, do all the things that us grievers have to continue doing. And I got to a point where I felt like I was coping actually pretty weirdly well. Still had my tough days, miss my parents constantly, still do. But I was feeling really called to talk about my grief and to just share my experiences, but also things that had helped me and just pen to paper kind of. So funny enough, I was in a conversation with, again, long story, but a psychic medium that I have gone to since my mom died, because the day my mom died, I was like, there's no way I can never talk to this woman again somehow. And my mom and I had always watched, I don't know if you're familiar with Long Island Medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, Teresa Cafuto. So we'd always watched her. And so I didn't go to her. She's very, very long wait list for her. But I did go to someone local who I love and respect and does a good job. I always say that with mediums, it's always about finding one that you trust and all of that. But I've gone to her, many times since my parents died, and always have a beautiful reading. And we were in a conversation once kind of after a reading, and I was expressing all of this to her and how I was feeling. And we were just talking about, these losses, but this idea of finding gains from your losses or turning your losses into gains came out of that. And I was like, something just clicked for me. I was like, there's something here. Like, I got to do something with this. And so Losses Become Gains was kind of born from there. So it started as a blog that I launched in late 2022. And then I think that just snowballed into, I think the podcast was maybe like May, June of 2023. So I've been doing that, oh my gosh, a couple of years now. And then in between there, I'd become a certified grief coach as well. So I also, offer one-on-one coaching and all that good stuff. And then a little bit later on, I was feeling called into just deeper levels of grief work. So, of course, working with grievers, but I think it was very much in line with my path of healing and figuring out what healing looks like, and feeling so called into this work and this kind of soul work, if you will. So there is someone named Sahara Rose. You may or may not hear of her. Anyone here listening have heard of her, but she, along with a couple of other people, lead a certification about soul purpose coaching. And so that really got me interested in that. And I was like, well, man, like I feel like I'm tapping into my soul's purpose here with this work that I'm doing. So eventually became certified in that as well. And so the work that I do is, I kind of have my grief coaching. I have my soul purpose coaching. People come to me for, kind of on one extreme of the spectrum or the other. But a lot of the work I do is really very combined, because with life, there is loss and grief and all of the things. They're so intertwined. And so a lot of the work that I do and a lot of the ways that I try and help people heal and move through what they have been through is, this beautiful kind of amalgamation of both, and empowering them to live a beautiful and abundant and joyful life after loss, which a lot of people, of course, can get very stuck with. They don't know how to move forward, don't even know where to start. And I'm like, that's where I can come in and kind of be a little bit of a guide. So that's
Yeah.
kind of been my journey. A lot
Wow.
of stuff
Yeah.
in there.
A couple of things right off the bat. You have, the losses you experienced, you have a lot to draw from for people,
Definitely.
that they can identify with a lot of the things you talked about. You have a relationship loss, you have a pet loss, you have parents, and so that valuable experience there alone. I am amazed too, because I had no idea, your situation with the medium or the soul purpose. I had no idea about any of that stuff. And so I'm searching out in my life now, and I'm a big believer about this stuff. And have had contact with my son and everything else, and helping parents heal, which embraces all of that and everything. So,
Mhm.
it blows my mind. I had no idea that you were into that stuff. And here's
No.
another one, it
Yep.
just keeps coming in. It's like, confirmation after
I
confirmation.
love it.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But I want to know about the soul purpose. What does that involve? How does that, how do
Yeah.
you bring that out for people?
Yeah.
Like what's the process with that?
It's the most beautiful process. And honestly, I like just like almost kind of set expectations. Like it's kind of a lifelong thing in a way that we're tapping into and drawing from. And it's so funny because whenever I like take on a new soul purpose or transformational life coaching client, I kind of use those terms a little bit synonymously. But one way or another, people that usually find me have been through some sort of loss. And they're either like, okay, I need help with the grief, or they're a little bit, let's say, further along where they've are dealing with their grief, they're coping with it, they're doing okay. But there's something within them that's like, I'm not feeling fulfilled. I know there's more out there for me. I want to rediscover me again. I want
Mm,
to, they're like, they almost can't describe it. They're just like, I just know there's more, and I want to go after it. And I love that because I've been there myself. I still kind of am there myself, which is why I say, it's like kind of a continuous process. But basically, and without getting like overly spiritual here or anything, and I know there's a lot of people like maybe out there listening that have varying levels of beliefs about, that our soul has a purpose here. And honest, full transparency, I still am kind of figuring out what I believe and feel about that too. And,
mhm,
how much is destiny? How much is, because I used to be that everything happens for a reason girl. And there's a part of me that like still really believes that. But then there's also a part of me that I'm just like, well, maybe stuff just happens and there's no reason for it. And there's no, so it's like, did my soul sign up for this? Did it not? So, but I think a lot of those teachings taught was that, it definitely leans into the belief that our soul does choose the trauma that we go through. And maybe not so specifically, so to speak. It's more that it like comes here with a purpose, with lessons to be learned, that we experience certain things or will be experiencing certain things in our lifetime that helps our soul grow through this lifetime. And then we die. And then for those that believe in reincarnation or that our soul continues on, then it continues those lessons and those learnings and things into the next life and all of that. So I would say I lean a little more that way. Of course, I probably wouldn't have done that certification if I didn't have some belief in that. And also, again, just with the experiences that I've had with mediums, with just spirit things, I definitely believe that there's more once we die. If you talk to my
mhm,
husband, there's nothing. It's just pure pitch blackness. But it's really funny being married to someone who has that belief. I'll tell you that. We have
mm,
some fun conversations. But yeah, so that's kind of where that comes in. So for me, I think there's again just kind of a delicate balance of knowing, I guess, believing that we do have a purpose here, that our soul, yeah, whether or not it chooses certain traumas, certain dark nights of the soul, is however you want to word it, that we are here experiencing what we're experiencing. I say this loosely for a reason, right? Because we have things here that our soul, needs to learn. And so whether it's so specific to losing both of my parents, for example, or going through XYZ, I don't know how granular it gets, but that's kind of the idea behind it.
So you help them explore the elements of that type of thing.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly where I
Okay.
was going with that. Yeah, and so I won't get
Okay.
too nitty-gritty on just for the sake of time and how we do that. But yeah, there's a lot of ways that we can kind of explore, our soul's purpose. And it's tapping into our natural abilities and gifts and our like personality and what we're drawn to. So for example, I mentioned Sahara Rose earlier. So she for example, has this like Dharma archetype quiz. So as a part of this certification, we looked at our dharma archetypes, because dharma means like our soul's purpose. And so for me, there's like I think 12 types. And so we can be multiple, but for me, I'm like a visionary and a teacher. Those are kind of like the two big ones for me. So in a lot of the things that I do, which is probably not a huge surprise as like a grief coach and educator and as a podcaster and things like that, I tend to have that more visionary teacher element to me. But there's a lot of people that might be like an artist or I'm trying to remember some of the other ones, but there's kind of more like analytical ones and whatever. So we look at a lot of different things when I coach someone through, this soul purpose work to just look at, just their kind of human design a little. And actually human design is also one of the things we look at, but just to kind of get a better idea of like who they are, who they were pre-loss, who they are sort of post-loss, if they want to dig into that. And then the type of work that they would maybe want to get into, or just how they can live a life that's more in alignment with like their truest, highest self. And it's a really, really awesome process. But I will say it's very funny because I do get a lot of people that come in and they kind of just want me to tell them like, okay, what's my soul's purpose? Like, what is it? What is it? And it's fun. I laugh because when I first started my certification in that, I was that person too. And then as I was going through it, I was like, this is way deeper than I thought it was.
I think my answer would be that is for you to explore and find
Exactly. And
out.
it is.
Right?
And I am just a conduit and a guide to help them get there and help them tap into that. But I can't give those answers. That's not for me to say or decide, right? That is within all of us. So, but that process of having those realizations and going through that process ourselves is so fun and so expansive and awesome.
Hello, friends. I just wanted to take a brief break here in the podcast to make you aware of a very exciting partnership that Heroes in Grief has just formed, and that is with Get Griefy magazine. I'm going to let their founder and editor-in-chief, Kara Sanchez, tell you all about it.
Hey, Heroes in Grief listeners. Life after loss isn't easy, but it can be colorful and full of possibilities. Meet Get Griefy magazine, a vibrant resource filled with inspiring stories of life after loss, expert advice, and voices from everyday grievers and thought leaders. Together, they're here to help guide you toward the side of life that's left to be lived fully and authentically. Dive into Get Griefy for free on issue or snag a print copy on Amazon. Connect with us on Instagram at Get Griefy Magazine or visit getgriefymagazine.com to explore, join our thriving small business collective, or discover advertising opportunities. Let's embrace life after loss, boldly and together.
And now back to our episode. So many people, they take these losses and do something with them. And that's the whole premise of this podcast and things you're doing. Do you think that everybody can do that? Everybody has that ability?
Oh,
I think so too.
Yeah. I get it. Just what I always say is and I certainly didn't make this up. This isn't a revolutionary idea, but it's whatever it looks like for you, right? So for us, that was having a podcast about grief, or that's like one of the things that we might do with it, right? I also write, so I'm working on a fiction book of all things, and my grief has come out through that too, through this really fun story. But I always say, and multiple guests, at least on my podcast, have also joked, like, you don't have to become a grief coach or do anything even relating to grief to create that meaning, that purpose, that thing that lights you up after you experience a loss. It could be gardening. It could be, whatever that outlet or thing that sparks joy is for you, like that's it. And you can lean into that. And it's not
a simple interpersonal relationship with somebody, or
absolutely.
something,
Yep.
So that's great because so many people think that. And so, talk about the stuck people, and I had someone approach me today and talk about a stuck person. And it's been years, 8 years or something since they lost their husband. And I'm like, that's where it got me thinking was you're talking there. I think everybody has the ability and so they don't have to sit there and think of it because they see this on a podcast or something like that. Like you said, it doesn't have to be anything of this nature whatsoever or anything monumental. I mean, I feature a lot of people on here who do all different kinds of things. Most of them are in coaching or written books or whatever, but that's not what it has to be for you out there at all. It's just, whatever, is brought out with you that works in your life and the elements of your life, whatever it might be. Like you said, gardening, whatever. And that may give you your own soul comfort. And so, whatever works. It's endless.
Yeah.
And
And I
whatever
love
you're.
that. Like, I almost hope that and I say that so similarly. So I really appreciate you saying that because it's like, because I feel like that can be very overwhelming for people at the same time. A lot of
Yeah.
people might hear that and that doesn't excite them. That scares them. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
but like maybe for you as well. I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I'll speak for me. Like I didn't go out ever thinking I'd be a grief coach of all things or hosting a podcast that talks about grief or any of the other things I do. I'd be like, oh my God, get real. What? Who am I? But I was led into that. I felt very soulfully led into it. So I think that's just the thing I would encourage people to do is like just be open, get curious and like just follow the things that feel good to you. And I think that's what loss and grief like it shows us. It shows us the things that we were not serving us before. Maybe that's certain relationships with people or it's what we do for work. I mean a lot of things, right? Things that just don't feel in alignment anymore, things that were once important maybe aren't now or vice versa. So it's when we're ready, of course, if there's anyone listening to this and they're in that very acute early grief, take your time with that, of course.
Yeah. And whatever brings fulfillment,
Yeah.
you can have fulfillment out of this grief and everything that can happen in your life again.
Yeah.
And there can be joy,
Mhm.
and so the
Always good.
potential's there. You got to explore what that would be in you and find out what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. That is great.
Yeah.
So the podcast you said has been going for how long now? You've been doing this?
For like a couple years. I'm actually just realizing like it kind of maybe just came up on 2 years. So that's crazy.
And how often do you release them?
So I do it's a weekly episode, but I recently just in the last like couple months started doing twice a week, which my gosh, it's a lot, but like so fulfilling. And one of the two episodes is of course kind of like a mini-sode. So it's very digestible, both for me to do, but also
Mhm.
for people to tune into. So I recently started doing something called morning sips and soul shifts. Morning being MOURNING, because of course I had to get the grief in there. And it's really just little bite-sized episodes. Those I tend to release on Mondays, just to kind of like have a little kickstart to your week, start it on a high note. Just something 10-15 minute episode that you can just like listen to as you sip your coffee, you're on your commute, whatever. And yeah, just get a little dose of coping tools if you're really struggling with a certain part of your grief or just like a little bit of inspiration. So those episodes have been really fun. And then typically on Thursdays, I release either like guest episodes like this or just a more bigger, more in-depth topic. So I will talk, oh my gosh, a lot of some recent ones were like, coping with anger in grief or, just navigating anger and how to do that or secondary losses, disenfranchised grief, these kind of bigger topics that's even hard to really fit in like an hour or less, but try
Mhm.
and tackle those. Because
So this has become your full-time work,
no, I
all of
actually have a
this?
9 to 5 on top of all this and a second
Oh, really?
podcast, which yeah, I don't, and a 16-month-old. I don't really know what happened with all my time, but yeah, that's where
I have
I'm
no
at.
idea how you're doing that.
I don't either. But you know what? That's what I'm saying though about I come back kind of to the soul purpose work, to the work that lights you up. Yes, I have a 9 to 5 and that's great. That's fine. It's there. I enjoy it for what it is. Would I love all of this to be my full time? Sure. But you make time for the things that you love and truly enjoy, and not 1 second of any of the coaching, the grief work, the podcast things, no, even all the technical stuff, not 1 minute of it has felt like work. It's just felt like, it's just joy and exploration. And it feels also really good, using my voice and by way of podcasting and stuff, which is why I started it. Cause I was like, writing's great. I've always loved writing. The blogging has been fun. And I, still continue to do that here and there. But the podcast was just such a fun, different outlet for me. It's certainly not like a new thing, podcasting, obviously, but yeah. And then just to amplify other people's stories too, exactly what you're doing. And it's, just have these beautiful conversations where, however we can make people feel just a little bit less alone.
Yeah, help them to connect. And you talk about instead of writing, doing the podcast, and I think
Mhm.
it personalizes it for people,
Yeah.
shows them who you are. And, we're just normal folks out here trying to
Mhm.
get a message across that things that we've gained and hopefully can impart to others, the ripple effect
Yeah.
and get it
Fighting the
out
good
there.
fight out here. We're trying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, more power to you. Holy cow, I couldn't
Thank
do
you.
all that. I thought about I do once a week, and I'm like, you know, and all the editing and all that stuff and
Yep.
everything too, so it's like
It's a lot. I know. I've
it
gotten
is.
a good system down and all of that, 'cause again, like I said, I have the second one I have is on a totally different other topic. Actually, it's about like food, drink, and travel. It's one that I co-host with my husband. It's really fun. It's just a total departure, obviously, from all of the grief stuff. But the whole traveling part of it has also been very, very healing for me. I mean, I think that's what's so beautiful about traveling and kind of getting out of our bubble a little bit and just, that sense of adventure and exploration of life. And when you go through loss, like you realize how short life can be, right? Or the things
Mm.
I've had a few death doulas actually on my podcast, and a lot of them, not all of them, have said that many people that they've uh, spoken with on their deathbeds or in hospice or whenever, you know, uh, was one of the biggest regrets that they had, or that one of the main things they say were, I wish I had gotten out more, or gone on that trip, or, just done all those things, right? They're not talking about their money. They're not talking about the things, right? It's the experiences or the relationships or whatever that come up. So yeah, that's a big thing for
Yeah,
both of us.
I
We
see.
also
I
work
think
in the wine industry, so that also is part
yeah, I think that's great because the soul you think of the soul purpose
of
too,
it.
and one thing I guess, has transformed in me is just throwing out all the peripheral stuff,
Yeah.
all these things, the media, everything that's you're inundated with all the time,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and it really doesn't matter,
No.
Whoops, I'm losing my mic. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
when you get down to brass tacks and the things that are so important, in reality, I mean, there's a few people who are activists out there that may be engaged in all that stuff or whatever, but
Mhm.
in reality, most of us, none of that ever matters in our lives.
Yeah.
It's the relationships, it's the things we do, it's the things that we do to fulfill ourselves that we experience
Yeah.
that really matter and that come down to that time, like what did I do? How was my life? What's the life review going to be like? You know?
Exactly, yeah, and, like, how'd you treat people? And, like, did you treat people how you would wanna be treated? And, like, all of that, yeah, it's like, that's the stuff that, really matters.
Yeah. So what else? Any plans for different things? Have you thought of you're a visionary? So what's been
Yeah.
going through that mind?
Honestly, that's a great question, and it's something I have had to really almost kinda take a step back on because I don't know how familiar you are with human design, or anyone here listening really. So in human design, I am what is called a generator. And I think there's like 5 types, right? There's a generator, manifester, manifesting generator, reflector, and projector. And don't ask me a lot about a lot of the other one. I know my husband is a reflector, which is like the 1% of the world. So I'm like, of course I would, marry
Uh,
the opposite of me. But basically with that, well, it means a lot of things, but I just, I tend to be more go, 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 right? As the word implies, I am a generator. I come up with ideas. I like the doing. One big lesson I've had to learn, and really especially as I've become a parent too, is the art of doing nothing and the
mm,
slowing down, the dolce far niente, right? And it's funny, I just got back from vacation and I noticed it there too. I wasn't necessarily feeling drawn to like, have to do a social post for the podcast, like those technical things, but like just the almost like more broadly, like, okay, what are we doing for lunch? What are we doing for this? What are we doing for that? And it's like, it's the generator in me, it's the mom brain in me, it's multiple things. And I realized very quickly, I was like, I gotta work on this. I gotta fix, I'm missing it. And I think that's another thing that, grief and loss and all of that has taught me in a way. It's very easy to get caught up with the day-to-day life and the to-do lists and all the things you got to get done, right? Um, things for our jobs, whatever. But it is so true what people say. It's like if this was your last day, like how would you want to spend it? And I know, like realistically, a lot of us, went, well, I got to go to work. Like, yeah, these are the things that we, um, just get very caught up in on a day-to-day basis. But I think coming out of that sometimes and having a more macro view. And that's a lot of the work that I do with people is like, okay, like that's fine. I understand the daily grind sometimes, whatever, but we shouldn't have to grind. We should be able to slow down and enjoy our life and not always feel like we have to go and do. Life is not a checklist, and it can definitely get that way sometimes. And yeah, and then like I said, with my daughter and stuff, like I want to slow time down, right? Like I want to like
Hmm.
watch her grow up and all these things. I don't want to rush through that or be distracted or just, distracting her so I can get stuff done. I'm like, no, that's not the parent I want to be. That's not the person I want to be. So that's been a big lesson for me in just these last several years since becoming a parent. I also had a very traumatic birth experience. So that was eye-opening in and of itself. So, yeah, that's a big thing.
You
So going
know,
back to your original question, it's like
yeah.
I have plans. I have a vision for where I'd love for everything to go, but I definitely am also in a phase right now where I'm just like, I don't know that I wanna create anything new right this minute. I wanna, like, grow what I have because 'cause I'm very
Hmm.
good and I'm quick with coming out with new things, but I've noticed I don't always, like, let things just foster and grow as they should.
I'm similar. I've always thought big, about everything. And so doing the podcast too, and I mentioned this before where, I'll be looking at things and I'll say, okay, well, maybe I should advertise it out there. I should do this and
Yeah.
everything. The original premise was let the universe take this where it's going to go.
Oh,
And
I
that's
love
all there
that.
is to it. So, but I find a lot of times too that working in these circles or whatever, and, like you said, we're part of the collective, all these different
Yeah.
things where, you can be looking at it all the time and, thinking about all this all the time and not taking the time to take the breath
Mhm.
and really, make sure you know where you are personally, yourself,
Yep.
are you centered in what's
Mhm.
happening? Are you still working through whatever process you may need to be working through and all of that? So, I'm trying to balance that too, because
Yeah.
it's very easy to get distracted by doing this all the time and having it
Mhm.
out there.
Yep.
And I'm experiencing that a lot right now because I'm batch recording a lot, so I don't have to
Mhm.
do it through the summer.
Yep.
And so yeah, so to like kind of just all around all the time, and then like, whoa, wait, take a breath, kick back, take a bit, just take a break
Yep.
or whatever. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like you
Enjoy
with
where you
your
are.
yep, yep. So you have a daughter or a son?
Daughter, yes.
Daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a 6-year-old granddaughter too, and she comes every Monday, and so,
Oh,
yeah, just make sure to keep that time allocated, so it's so precious, and, yeah, she's growing up quick,
I
and
know.
it's gotta stop, hold on.
Seriously.
Yeah. So, no, that's good fodder for everybody right there, I think, that even us in these circles, we go through it, same thing, and
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
wanna sit there and miss it. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
great. It's a great thing that we've been called to do, I think,
Mm.
no doubt about that. And, I just, I get people sending me emails or whatever, and it's helping them again, the ripple effect or whatever. And that's what it's all about, really.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
keeping that right in place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially with nowadays with social media and everything too, there's just
Mm,
always pressure to feel like you have to keep up and post a lot or stay on top of trends or whatever. And I also have just because I work in digital marketing kind of in my 9 to 5, like I'm just I have to be on social media. I am on social media a lot. And there's a lot I enjoy about social media, but I also like I said I just went on vacation. I was purposefully off of it quite a bit. And I was off of email and I really tried to like get offline. And it was so good. It was like one of the best things I could have done for myself. So, and it's tough because like perhaps like I'm a one woman show with a lot of the things I do. I don't have help. So I do everything. I do all social
mhm.
media, editing, all the things. And that's how I'm having it for now. Maybe it'll change in the future. But yeah, I mean, that can lead to burnout very, very fast.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I'm not sponsored or anything. I don't make
Yeah,
any
no.
money off a podcast.
Mm,
That's not what it's about. That's
yeah.
not why I'm doing it. If that ever was to come about, great, but
Mhm.
I'm not pursuing that. It's
Yeah.
just, no, I think the more of us that can get the word out there and help for people, the better. And that's one of the things I've enjoyed about the grief help circles is that I don't have to worry about what somebody else is doing or anything like that. It's just do it
Yeah.
and get it out and let the people who find what you're doing find you
Yep.
and hopefully it's meaning something to them.
It's so true. And we all that's what is so beautiful about it. And that's why, again, kind of coming back to the soul purpose work, it's like, look at all of us sort of in this, again, for lack of a better term, this grief space, if you will, but like we're all so different. We do it differently. It's almost like going to a certain therapist or a coach or whatever, you're drawn to certain people for a reason, I think. So and that's where, a lot of, I don't really deal with imposter syndrome so much anymore, more than I used to, but, remind myself about that a lot. Like I might be someone's cup of tea and I might not be someone else. That's okay. That's fine. Like
Yep.
it's good that we can discern what we like and what we don't like. And yeah, so I love that mentality you have about just kind of the universe finding, the podcast or whatever work we do. Like I totally buy that because it really is amazing. Like some people that I've either worked with or have found a course of mine or the podcast or whatever were just like, I found you so serendipitously, or you popped up on my feed. I'm like, thank you, algorithm. Like,
Yeah.
for a literal Google search. I'm like, that's crazy. Of all the people you could have found, you found me. Like, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're being very divinely led. I love it.
The divine algorithm.
Yes. The powers of meta. Oh my God.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really gross too.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, universe, take the wheel. Like,
That's right.
please take some power
Awesome.
from meta. Yeah.
Incredible. So Tara, we covered a lot of what you do. Anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to let people know about?
No, I mean, I think we did cover a lot in short time. Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, it's just remembering that, I get the aloneness, the loneliness, the feeling like things are just never going to be okay again, that you just don't know how you're going to put one foot in front of the other or even remotely find the same semblance of fulfillment or joy or whatever word you want to use there that you had before. That's so valid. And we are not the same person that we were before our loss. And that is something to mourn. I always like to say like that's okay to miss that. It's okay. That's so fair. But when we're ready, like I was saying earlier, kind of getting curious, getting open to who we could be now and just what is out there for us if we do open ourselves up to that can be such an incredible thing and such an enlightening and fun and expansive process when we kind of let it unfold. And so I just encourage anybody here who's feeling a little closed off to that or, because all these things I'm saying, by the way, if I were to hear some of this in the beginning or, earlier days of my grief, I'd have been like, kick rocks, please. Like, you don't, you're too happy for me. I get that. And I'm not this happy all the time. We all have our moments, but just that post-traumatic growth, it is real and it doesn't erase our grief. It doesn't diminish any loss that we've been through. It's just, like what you were saying, that grief and that joy and all of those dualities can actually coexist. And hearing stories like these ones that we share on our podcast of other people, or even outside of like grief, right? I just started opening myself up to different books or different podcasts or different things on a lot of different topics of people that were just living some really cool lives and they had been through some stuff. Like, again, I never want to like compare because all of our losses are so sacred to us, but like, let's just generally speaking, for example, I had a really beautiful childhood. I did not experience trauma in my childhood. I was very, very blessed. And hearing some stories of people who did, right? That makes me feel so much more grateful for what I do have and the memories that I had and the beautiful parents that I had and all of that. So, there is a lot that, we can open ourselves up to after loss if we allow that to happen. So I'm grateful that I did that for myself. So I guess I just empower anyone listening here today to just, again, when you're ready, doing that too, because you just never know what's out there for you, right? For us, it happened to be podcasts and lots of other fun things and the connections that we've made in these awesome groups that we're in and things like never saw that for myself, right? And it's given me such a great community because, again, I have wonderful friends. I have a wonderful husband. Like I have wonderful people around me, but they're not people who really get it because they have not been through what I've been through, or they just don't want to talk about it as much as I maybe want to talk about it, or in the way in which that's fair. They don't need to, right? And nor do I expect them to. But that's why I think that community component, or just getting help either through a coach, a therapist, whatever, really is so important if you being anyone here listening, is struggling, because you don't have to navigate your grief alone. And I know from experience, because I did very much navigate my grief alone for a while. And I think that's just because I'm naturally a little bit more, I guess from my parents, just more independent. I'm good on my own. I really am. I hate to say it, but I'm a pretty good person being alone by myself. I love people, but also I'm cool by myself. But in doing that, I allowed that space for growth that I don't think I would have had if I didn't give myself that opportunity. So,
yeah. Thank you so much for saying it the way that you said it, because I say it similar because of the podcast. I want this to be a source of hope for people.
Yes.
And so sometimes when you're expressing that, you're bringing through what we, have the joy and all these things. And I always try to bring it back to those people, those early grievers, and where they might be, and being sensitive to them, because they stumble upon this and they're like, whoa, wait a minute,
You're 20 steps ahead of me. I'll never get to where you were. Trust me, I didn't think we'd be here either, but here we are.
Yeah. Thank you for you saying it, because I say it all the time. And, no, see, there's another example, of someone who experienced the same thing and thinks you can too.
Yep.
So, thank you. Yeah. Eloquently said. Thank you.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tara, fun. That was fun.
This is great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time, and certainly have all your information available for everybody. And thanks for sending it along and everything. And so let's keep in contact. All right.
Will do. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thank you, Tara. Thank you for listening to the Heroes in Grief podcast. If you'd like access to any of the links that we discussed in today's show, you can find them in the show notes. There's also a link there to support the podcast if you care to. And there is an email link for me there. I'd love to hear from you and your ideas about the show, or what you thought about the show. You really can help out this podcast to get to more people if you subscribe, rate, or review it in whichever way your platform provides. Each week, Heroes in Grief is released on Sunday, so look for new episodes there. Thank you again for listening to Heroes in Grief.